Let's take a to-do list built with React Query and add drag and drop features with react-beautiful-dnd. Hello and welcome, I'm Dave. Today we'll add drag and drop to a React Query to-do list, and I'll provide links to all resources in the description below. I'll also provide a link for you to join my Discord server where you can discuss web development with other students, and you can ask questions that I can answer and receive help from other viewers too. I look forward to seeing you there. Let's start with a quick review of what we'll create today. We're going to take a to-do list, the one you see right here, built with React 18 and React Query, and add drag and drop features to it with the npm package react-beautiful-dnd. More than that, I'm going to take you a little bit further than what I've seen in other tutorials. Since we're pulling the to-do list in from an API, all of that data that is, anytime the list is updated, you would normally lose your drag and drop order and get the order that is provided from the API. This could happen because any CRUD operation would change, and of course that would invalidate your cache data and you would have to requery that data, or it could be because you reload the app. But you can see here I'm going to reload, and we're going to keep that same order that I use when I drag and drop the items. And so I'm going to show you how to keep those changes in place even through CRUD operations and even through page refreshes. Our starter code today is going to be the code from my React Query tutorial for beginners. And inside of this repository that you see right here in GitHub, we have two directories. And one is the React Query intro starter. That's not the one you want for the starter code today. You're going to want the completed code from this tutorial for beginners, and that is in the React Query intro directory that you see right here. So you could fork this repository and then of course clone it to your computer, and you would want to modify the code that you see here. This is the one I'm going to start with. And note, you don't really have to have a full understanding of React Query to know what we're going to do today, and that is apply React Beautiful drag and drop to a React application. But it will help, and especially it will help you understand how the data from the API layer works and how we're going to go ahead and keep that drag and drop order even when we request new data from the API. And if you haven't checked out this tutorial for beginners with React Query, I highly recommend it as well, because an API layer is something that is becoming the norm with React instead of just using useEffect to create your own fetch. Let's go to VS Code now, and I have our React Query intro folder open, and you can see I've got the name here inside of the package JSON that I'm looking at, and we see all of the dependencies. I'm going to change this name from React Query intro to React Query DnD just for drag and drop. And from there, we need to update these dependencies. I created this React Query intro about 7 months ago. Notice it does have React 18, but it might be a couple of updates behind, but Axios has had a major update, and there are some other updates as well. So let's go ahead and handle that. We'll do that by opening the terminal with Control and the backtick, and from there we can go ahead and type npx, and then we'll type npm-check-updates-u, which is the update flag. And after I press enter, it's going to check those updates and give us some information. And they're completed already. I'll expand this to the full screen, and we can see these were our old versions, and this is what they'll be updated to. Notice Axios is going from 0.27.2 to 1.2.2. So there have been a few other minor updates in the other packages as well. So after all of that, now all I have to do is type npm I, and we'll get all of those updates. Then we'll once again look at our package JSON after we get the updates, and we'll confirm everything has been updated. So it looks like all those updates are hitting. I'm going to make this a little smaller, and now we'll be able to look in our package JSON, and we should be able to see the updates. And notice, even though we don't see the updates here, it says changes have been made. So let's close this, and we won't save, and now let's reopen it. And now we see the updates inside of our package JSON. So we have Axios at 1.2.2, React is 18.2, and we have the other updates we looked at as well. But we are missing one dependency, and that is react-beautiful-dnd. So here in the terminal, I'm going to go ahead and type npm I and then react-beautiful -dnd, and we'll install this dependency as well. I believe it's at 13.1.1. Let's check it out when we get it. Yes, there it is. react-beautiful-dnd 13.1.1. Okay, now we have all of our dependencies. Notice something that we also have. We have a data folder over here, and with that React query intro tutorial, we were running JSON-server to get the data that we have inside of this db.json. So just a dev server for our API, and it has about 200 to-dos here. And so I'm going to go ahead and close this. So let's press Control and backtick and start JSON server. And I'll do that by typing npx json-server. And then I'm going to type -w, which is the watch flag. And we're going to tell it to watch the data directory. And inside, we're going to look at the db.json file. Then -p for port. And we want this to run on port 3500. And so now this will start up the server. It's already started on localhost 3500. I'll expand this and we can see a few more messages here. So it loaded the data from db.json. Here's the resources at todos at port 3500. And then there's the home directory. So our JSON server is running. Now we're going to want to go ahead and open a second terminal here with bash is what I have, git bash in my terminal. And there I'm going to just type npm start. And instead of run dev, if you're wondering why, well, that's what this repository has. We don't have a dev here, we just have a start. So this will start the application. I've been using Vite for a while now, so going back 7 months to when this repository was created, I'm back in Create React App, and it just had npm start for me there. So going to go ahead and start the application. And now this will have the basic to-do list because it was already in place and working before. And it's loading right now. So we should have this on localhost port 3000 when it starts up. And there is our to-do list. But this does not have any drag and drop action to it. It's just a basic to-do list. And when we add a new item, I'll just say something like take out the trash here. And press enter, it has take out the trash at the top of the list. And that's the only place it can be. I can't put it anywhere else. I can delete the item and everything else works like we would expect from a to-do list. Also, notice the React query logo over here in the bottom left. If you're not familiar with that, that is the React query dev tools, which it also comes with. You can click that to open it and close those dev tools. I am just going to drag the browser over to the right for now, and we're going to go back to VS Code. Even though we're running our app in one terminal and we're running JSON server in the other terminal, we can just close this window for now, and both will keep running. So now let's open the source directory, and really all of our changes today are going to be inside of the features, to-dos, directories, because to-dos is nested inside of features, and then we have the to-do list.js. And besides the changes we make in this file, I am going to create one extra directory because we're going to have a helper function today to help us get react-beautiful-dnd to work with the changes that came with React 18 strict mode. But besides that, everything else we do will be inside of this file. To start with, we're going to have 3 imports from react-beautiful-dnd. So we'll just put those right at the top. We're going to import DragDropContext. And I'll just press tab, and of course it completes the full statement from react-beautiful-dnd. But then I'm going to put a comma, and we also need droppable, and we also need draggable. And I can see I'm extending past the screen, so I'm going to press Alt-Z, so everything in this file wraps down to another line if it gets too long. Now to use what we've imported from react-beautiful-dnd, we need to scroll all the way down to where we're creating some content. And that is way down here, as you see, let content. And then we look for these different stages that come from React query, like is loading, is error, or else we essentially have our to-dos with a map. And so we're going to nest a few things here, and we already see a few nested things, so this could get even further into nesting as we go. But that's where we're going to start, and we'll start after this else with the drag and drop context. So here I'll say drag, I said and drop, it's just drag drop context. And we can close that out, but after we close it out, I need to go ahead and highlight the closing tag and put it in the right place afterwards as well. You can see I'm using bracket pair colorization here, and that is a setting inside of VS Code. I'll show you in a moment. But right now the line extends from there, and it helps me find the end of this. So now I know where the context is ended. I'm going to put that drag drop context closing tag there. save. Now, I've also got a red line here, like it still doesn't like something I'm doing, so we'll fix that in a minute too. But just to show you that setting I was talking about, bracket pair colorization, if you press Control and the comma, you'll open the settings for VS Code, and here we can just search for bracket pair colorization, and you can see I have it enabled right here, and that's all you need to do. And then I'm using the GitHub theme. Other themes that you use may have different colors, but overall, these lines really help me because it draws lines from the curly braces or parentheses so I can see where they begin and they end. So now that we have our drag drop context here, of course, we're getting a few notes from VS Code because we need to change some things inside of it as well. The first thing we're going to do is add droppable right underneath it because we need a place to drop what we drag. Droppable is also going to have a droppable ID, and we can really label that anything we want to. So I'm going to label it to-dos because we're working with a to-do list. Then I get the closing droppable. And as you would guess, it's going to go right back near the closing drag drop context. So once again, I'll just highlight that and follow my line down. And after I get to the bottom, I'm going to paste droppable's closing tag in. And now that I have both, I'll scroll back up and we can add a little bit more for droppable because it has a function that comes right after it. So underneath droppable, I need to put a curly brace and then a operators for an anonymous function, and it gets provided as a parameter here. And then the arrow, and then I'm going to use a parentheses. And now I'm going to take this closing parentheses and closing curly brace, and I will Control X to copy those. I'll scroll all the way down to the end here by my droppable, and I need those afterwards. So everything goes inside that function. And now you can see we had some automatic indentions, and those errors we were previously seeing are now gone. But we are still not finished because we need a parent here. We need a parent element. So that's what I'm going to provide next. And that is going to be a section element, which is generic, but not as generic as a div. There's actually still some semantic meaning to the section element. Inside of these curly braces now, we're going to spread provided and then have dot droppable props. And after that, there's also going to be a ref. So we'll say ref equals, we'll have curly braces once again, and this is going to be provided dot inner ref. And we get auto completion there, which helps out. And then we can close our section and we get the closing section tag, which, as you guessed, is going to go near the bottom, but notice it's inside of this function. So let's scroll down and let's make sure we keep it inside of the function that we were working on there. So let's put it right here, I believe is correct, and save, and I think so. Let's confirm this with the section, and yes, I believe that is correct. Now, one reason we keep seeing errors after I do some of these things is we have more to add, but another is I needed to move this content equals out of here. So I'm going to do that now with Control X because the content equals actually needs to come before all of this. So I'm going to put it up here above and put a parentheses after. Then, as you guessed, there will be a closing parentheses, but that needs to come after the closing drag drop context. So I can put that right here and then save that, and we should match up. And if I'll just click here where the closing is, I can follow my yellow line all the way back up here to the content. And we've definitely created some extra nesting, and we still see a problem here, and that's because to-dos now needs to be inside of a curly bracket itself. And so let's follow to the end of the to-dos, and let's realize that there needs to be another closing curly as well. So once we add that, things should look a little bit better, and we get some auto formatting. And now there should not be any more of those errors we were looking at before, but the nesting's getting pretty deep. I'm going to hide or press Control B to hide that file tree so we can see things just a little bit better. So here we've started the to-dos now inside of the section, and we're mapping over those. We're also going to need the index with the to-dos. Sometimes you see this represented as I, but I'm just going to type out the full index here so we're clear into what that is, because we've used drag drop context and droppable, but we still need to use draggable on every article, which is the item in the to-do list. They're nested inside of an article element here. So now we're going to go ahead and put draggable there. So I will add Draggable that we imported here. And now Draggable is going to have some extra things that go with it as well. So let's add those while we're here. First, it's going to have a key, which I need to spell correctly. And the key can be the todo.id. Now that we're inside of the to-dos map, so we're working with each to-do. After we get that key, let's go ahead and add a draggable ID. And that draggable ID needs to be a string, and our to-do IDs are a number. So we're going to have to say todo.id dot toString would be one way to provide that. And then after we've provided that string, we also still need the index. And in this case, we want the index to actually be equal to the index that we're using there with map. So now we have completed that. And I know we're seeing a lot of red here because I didn't move the closing Draggable yet. I will Control X to get rid of that and put it after the closing article tag. And now save once again. We have auto formatting and we're deep into the nesting, but we have now wrapped all of the articles, all of the items that will be created with the Draggable as well. But are we finished? And the answer is not quite yet. Just like Droppable, it had a function after it. So does Draggable. So on the next line, we need to go ahead and add that function. So once again, a curly brace, the operators, pass in provided. It's an arrow function. And after that, we'll once again use a parentheses. So now we'll take the closing parentheses and curly brace, Control X, and we're going to move those till after the end of the article. And we'll paste those right in there. I'll save for the auto format and we should be good. We can follow this back up to the beginning of the function. Now we need to add a few things to the article itself. So we no longer need the key here. We moved that up to the Draggable. But what we will put here is a curly brace. We'll spread in provided once again. We'll use our dot and we'll say draggable props. And that gets the auto completion if you pick that from the menu. And then we're going to go ahead and put another curly brace, spread in provided once again go for auto completion, and we'll say drag handle props, which is the first one in the menu. And then we're going to give this a ref and we'll set this equal to provided dot inner ref. And save. Now we have actually added everything we need to, which seems like quite a bit now that we look at it, but we start with the DragDropContext, then we have Droppable, and then we have the function that goes with Droppable. Then we needed to add a parent element that we didn't previously have, and then we map over the to-dos like we were, and then we wrap each to-do item, which was in an article element as the parent, in the Draggable right here. Now there is one more thing we need to add, and that is to make the droppable placeholder. So we have a place to drop everything. And so that comes right inside of the section right here. So if we look at what we're completing here, we've got the to-dos map. We're still inside of the section. So we really want to make the entire section a place that any one of our draggable items could be dropped. And so to do that, underneath where we map, but still inside the section, we need to have provided.placeholder. And that will essentially make our section element the place that we can drag and drop any of our items. With all of the drag and drop changes in place for now, let's go ahead and move Visual Studio Code to the left, and I'm going to move our to-do list to the full screen, and then I'm going to open DevTools. And really, we might have some messages here to clear out from development. I'll refresh and see what we have. But I'm expecting an error, or at least a warning, because we haven't done anything to adapt for React 18 yet. So let's look at what happens. When I click on an item, we get this message, unable to find Draggable with ID 202. If I click on a different one, we'll get the same message for whichever item I'm clicking on, 198, 201, and so on. This is due to strict mode in React 18, and react-beautiful-dnd really hasn't been updated to handle that yet. But there is a workaround, so let's take a look at that. I found this article by William Bernting, and I'm going to link to this in the description of the video, but he linked to some solutions, and very helpful solutions at that. So while he credited the authors, he did not come up with those solutions himself, he did create a very useful article, and that led me to the solution for working with react-beautiful-dnd and React-18 at the same time. And so now let's take a look at those solutions, which I will also link to. First, we note that Giovanni here inside of this question here in GitHub, or this issue that's now closed, he posted a solution that essentially works, and you could copy that here. But even better yet, I won't say really better than this solution, but a little bit more useful immediately without tweaking it much. We scroll down underneath Melogy, so I'll put a link to this page and you can see both, but Melogy updated this for TypeScript, but it also is really kind of a complete solution if you aren't using TypeScript, like I am not in this tutorial because the previous repository was not using TypeScript. So really, I'm just going to copy this, but remove a couple of things, and then we'll just use it as regular React and JavaScript. So all you need to do is click copy here from this link, and then we'll take it back to VS Code. All right, back in VS Code, I am going to press Control-B to once again show this file tree. What I want to do is create another directory inside of the source directory. I'm going to call this helpers, and then inside of this directory, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it strict mode, I could spell again, droppable.js. Now inside of this, I'm just going to paste this helper function that we just saw in the GitHub issue. And then I'll press Control-B to once again hide the file tree so we can see most of this. But what we're going to do is essentially just remove the type definition here, this droppable props. You can see VS Code's asking me, what are you doing? Because I'm not using TypeScript here. Everything else is good though. So after that, and we save it, this is usable the way it is. So we've got strict mode droppable being exported here. So let's go back to our to-do list, scroll up to the top where we brought in droppable. We're no longer bringing in droppable. We're going to replace that with that new strict mode droppable. So we'll import, and here we'll say strict mode droppable. And after we do that, I want to come back in here with the import and just say as droppable. And so that renames that import, and now I don't have to change any of the rest of the code, and it's useful the way it is. Let's drag VS Code to the left, and let's look at our app that's now open in Chrome underneath. And I'll go ahead and open up DevTools also to see if we get any errors in the console when I click on an item. Notice our mouse is now turning into a hand, so it looks like it's ready to grab and drag something. I'm clicking on these items. I'm not getting any of those warnings that I was before, actually updating, checking items if I want to. But now I can drag something like learn stuff, and I can drag it to the top. But when I let go, watch what happens. It goes back to where it was. If I grab this one on the bottom, take it to the top, it goes back to where it was. So we're still not quite finished, but we have eliminated the problem that we had with React-18. So I'll close the DevTools now, and I'll bring our Chrome browser back to the right, and let's look at VS Code in a full screen. Our remaining issues are our draggable items will not stay where we are dragging them. They always go back to where they started, and we still haven't fixed the issue of refreshing the page or any other CRUD operation that may request that data that we get here from the use query hook with React Query. And then when that data comes in, you can see we are sorting it with the select statement, and we have data.sort, and we get the newest item at the top. And it would always be resorted, and our draggable order would go away. So what we need to do is create an intermediate state, essentially, when we get that data. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the name todos from this query and just call the data what it is, and that's data. And then we've already got the useState hook, and so we're going to actually create an intermediate state here called todos. So I'll have const and then todos and update todos, or I could have called that set todos, whichever you want to, and then set that equal to useState. and we'll set that state equal to the data. But the data could be undefined if we're in a isLoading state, for example, from React Query. So let's put in the short circuit operator and also leave an empty array just in case, so we always know the to-do state will be an array. And that also lets us know that if data changes, we may want to update the to-dos. So what we can do for that is bring in the useEffect hook. And then with useEffect, underneath this, I'm going to put the useEffect hook in, and we'll have data as a dependency. So when the data changes, we could then update the to-dos as well. So in our dependency array of useEffect is where we'll put the data. And then here, for now, we will be putting more in this useEffect, but for now, I'm just going to put update to-dos and put the data in. And now that we have our intermediate state declared here with to-dos from the data, and anytime the data changes, we update the to-dos, we can now create a handleOnDragEnd function. And I'm going to scroll down and put it underneath the handleSubmit function, and we'll use this with our DragDropContext, and you'll see how it applies. So we'll say const handleOnDragEnd, set this equal to a function that receives a result. And this is with react-beautiful-dnd once again. And now inside of the function, the first thing we'll do is say if we do not have a result, in other words, we do not have a destination where we're going to drop our draggable item, meaning we drop it outside of the droppable area, so there wouldn't be a destination declared, then we're just going to return. Otherwise, we would have an error. Now we're also going to define tasks, and that's just going to be equal to spreading in the to-dos into a new array. And that's because our tasks here will be modified, and you never want to modify the state directly in React. So I'll just create a new array to do that. Now first I'm going to define a reordered item, so we can put that right here. And then I'll set that equal to tasks.splice, and we'll start with our result.source.index, and then we're going to grab that one item out, and that's what we get right here is that reordered item. And then underneath we can say tasks.splice, and then we'll have our result.destination.index. And we're not replacing any here, but we're inserting that reordered item. And now that we've updated the tasks array and we have the reordered item in the position that we have dropped it, we're simply going to update the to-dos and pass in the tasks. Now we still haven't used our handleOnDragEnd function yet. We've just defined it. So let's drag it down here. Let's scroll down to the DragDropContext, and this is where we can use it. We'll say onDragEnd, and we simply pass in our function. Now notice we don't have to have an anonymous function and then the handleOnDragEnd function call and pass in a result. It gets the result automatically that we defined up here. So with that, let's go ahead and save this, and I will pull this over to the left, and we'll look at our application here on the right. Let's see if we can drag an item and see if it stays where we leave it. And now it does. So we have solved that problem, but all that's left that we need to do is say a refresh. We want to keep learn stuff at the top when we refresh as well. Or if we were to do any other CRUD operation that would call for a refresh of the data, say I check off hey, well, now that is a CRUD operation. It's an update. And of course, then it refreshed the data and hey went to the top where it was before from the API data instead of our personalized order that we're creating with the React Beautiful drag and drop. So let's scroll this back over, and now we'll learn how to handle that. Any CRUD operation or a refresh will keep the same order once we're finished. Let's scroll back up to the useEffect hook where we'll put in some more logic right here. And I really want to have a minimum impact on all of the CRUD operations, any of these mutations that we've defined that we're using inside of the JSX. I'd rather not change those if possible. So we're going to try to handle everything that we possibly can right here. So we're going to start out by loading something from the local storage if it exists. So I'm going to call this the array IDs order. I'm going to set it equal to json.parse. And what we're going to parse is local storage, and then we're going to get an item, and I'll call this item the task order. So if we have saved something to local storage under the title task order, this will retrieve it. Now after that, we're going to need to create an index of IDs, and we want to do this right away when the app loads, and useEffect will run when the app loads. It runs at least once. In strict mode, it's going to run and then the component will unmount and then it will run again, and that only happens in dev mode. But in production mode, useEffect would run once. And that's what we want to do here, is just say if we do not have an array of IDs in order, then we also want to check the data. So let's say double ampersand there and data.length. And now if we do have data is what we're saying, and we do not have an array of IDs in order, then we need to go ahead and create that. So this would happen essentially when the app loads or is refreshed, because that's like a reload. Let's say const IDs order array. Let's set this equal to data.map, and then we'll have for each task in our data, we're just going to grab the ID because we only need an array of IDs. And once we have that array, let's go ahead and store it in local storage. That's what we need next. So localStorage.setItem, and now we're going to store the task order. That's the title. And here's what we'll store. We need json.stringify, spell stringify, and now we'll pass in the IDs order array that we just created. So now we know we're always going to have an array of IDs in the order that we want to have them in, whether that's the order that just came from the API or we have used a drag and drop order. And of course, we may have to save that a couple of times after we drag and drop, but now we know we'll have that array. Okay, now we have just a little bit more logic here. And this is going to be an array as well. So I'm going to say let my array because we may have to reassign it. Now another if statement, I'll say if we have an array of IDs in order, and that's what we of course got from local storage at the top. So this would not be necessarily when the app loads, but the data has changed. So if we do have that array, and let's go ahead and make sure there are items in it. So we'll check the length. And I'm once again going to check the data and make sure it has length. And I don't need the extra parentheses, but I keep wanting to type it. Okay, now inside of our if statement, I'm going to assign my array equal to the array IDs order, and we're going to map over those. And now remember, it's just an array full of ID numbers. So I'm going to say, that's the position. I just abbreviated POS there. And then inside of this, I'm going to return, I'm going to take the data, and I'm going to find the element in the array, which of course, there are objects inside of the data. Each one is being a to-do object. But I'm going to look at that to-do object.id, and I'm going to set that equal to, or I'm going to actually see if it is equal to the position. So I make sure to get it in the position we've set. And now my array should hold the data in the order that we've saved it in. But there could be an issue here yet, and that is, what if there are new items as well that are not necessarily in the array we saved, that do not come in from our local storage? We've added a new item, but the last time we saved our array of IDs in order, it was before that new item was added. So we have to consider that also. So still inside of this if statement, we essentially have what if there are new items. So let's say const new items. Let's set this equal to data.filter. And now for each element in the array, which once again are objects, we are going to return any data element that is not in that array of IDs in order. And I keep saying in order, but it's named array IDs order. So there I'm going to use .includes, and essentially with the bang operator here, it's saying it does not include. So then I'm just going to look at the element ID, .id. So essentially the to-do ID that we have here. And so now that gives us the new items that were not already inside of this IDs array. And now that I have those new items, we just need to check to see if we actually do have them. So I'm going to say if we have new items in an array, so it should have a length. And if we do have that, I'm going to set my array equal to a new array and spread in the new items first. And after that, I'm going to spread in my array that we have already put in order up here above. And now I'm going to go ahead and save that. But what I need to change yet is here. I'm just setting update to-dos back to the data. What I really want to do is set it equal to my array. But just in case my array doesn't exist at any point, because we have defined it here, and at this point it is undefined, and then it only gets assigned if this conditional is true. So if it is undefined, I still want to set this equal to data right there. But we're not quite finished yet, although that does handle all of the logic for the useEffect when it runs. We also need to go back down to our handleOnDragEnd. There's a couple of considerations. So after we drag the items and we have our tasks in order, but before we update the state here, let's go ahead and define an IDs order array here. And I'll set this equal to tasks.map. And then for each task, I just want an array of the task IDs, which are essentially, once again, our to-do IDs. Then I'm going to store that in local storage. So this is much like what we did in part of our useEffect logic. I'll set the item and I'll set this under task order. And now I'm going to say json.stringify, and I'll pass in the IDs order array right here. So this happens after we drag an item and we update our tasks, but before we set the state. So we're saving our new order in local storage as well, so we can refer to that even when the page is refreshed. Now, the only CRUD operation we're going to run into an issue with is the delete operation. Now, when we delete an item, we're going to be removing that ID, and react-beautiful-dnd needs to reference the ID, and of course our ID array will as well. So we need to actually update the array, our reference array that we keep in local storage, anytime we delete something. So let's go ahead and create a handleDelete function. I'll say const handleDelete, and we'll set this equal to a function that receives ID. And then inside of this function, the first thing we need to do is load that array of IDs once again, just like we did in useEffect. So I'm going to scroll up here. I'm just going to copy this line right here where we get local storage get item and the task order. So Control C to copy. And that's the very first thing I'm going to do inside of the handleDelete. So now after we've loaded that, let's go ahead and make sure that it has some items in it before we do anything else. So we'll say array IDs order. I'm going to check the length once again. And if that array has length, then I'm going to define a new IDs order array. And this is going to be equal to the array IDs order. And then I'm going to filter, and we're just going to filter through each number that's in that array that we've loaded. And we just don't want that number to be equal to the ID that we are deleting, the ID that actually gets passed into the handleDelete. And then after that, we're ready to set our new array into the storage once again. And we did that right up here. So I can just copy this out of the onDragEnd or handleOnDragEnd function, and I can put it right here as well, where we save this back under task order inside of local storage. Then once we do that, we still need to call the delete mutation that is down here inside of the JSX currently. So let's scroll all the way down and we'll find where that delete mutation is. Here it is. So we have a button with a class name of trash. It gets the trash can, and the onClick calls that delete mutation. So let's just grab this out of here for now, because that is not what's going to get called. So I'll go ahead and Control X to remove it just for now. And up here, we'll put it inside of our handleDelete. And it's definitely the last thing that needs to happen, because then it will call an update to our state in the React query that would be called. And of course, we'll get new data in, and it will go through that sorting process. So here we call the delete to do mutation.mutate, and we just pass in that ID since it has the same property name. So we can just say ID right there. And I just noticed I almost made a mistake. Once we define this new IDs order array, that is what needs to get passed in right here. I copied it down and didn't have the same exact variable name. So now we do. We're passing in the new IDs order array to JSON stringify here as we set that item. Okay, now we just need to use handleDelete back inside of the JSX where we took that delete mutation from. So it goes right here, put in handleDelete, and what gets passed into handleDelete is the todo.id. And with that complete, we're ready to check our application. One thing I want to do that you may have to do, I had to do during development for this project as well, open DevTools and go to the Application tab. If you have an issue at all, you may want to go ahead and delete the task order that you're storing in local storage that's created during development. And now you can start with a fresh app that does not have a task order installed right there. And I guess I could go ahead and open that back up to DevTools just so we can see if an error pops up. I'm going to refresh and everything's good now. And let's go ahead and once again check that application tab. It should have created a new task order, and there it is. So that's all good. We'll go back to the console here. Let's see if everything else works. We can drag and drop, learn stuff, and hey, can switch places, no problem there. We can update hey and say it's not complete or it is complete. Let's go ahead and delete a new to-do. That's fine also. Let me drag this completely off the page somewhere that it doesn't belong, and it goes back to where it was. Oh, now we have an issue. Let's see if we can quickly fix that in our handleOnDragEnd function. I'll pull this back up. Let's go back to full screen for VS Code. And in our handleOnDragEnd, we are checking the result. Let's actually see if it has a destination there. And then that might help us out. So let's save that, and we'll go ahead and drag this back over. And we'll go back to our code. Let's clear this out and refresh to see if everything's good. Now let's take another item, take it clear up off of the list and drag it back in. And now it seems like we can do that. We took it out, let it go back, and we're not having any problems. So a quick fix there that we found here during testing. But other than that, we can delete items. We could probably add a new item like test1, 2. And everything seems to be working as we expect it to be. If I find any other little bugs along the way, of course, I'll update the repository, but this should show you how to apply React Beautiful drag and drop to a to-do list or any other type of list, and then save those changes for the order that you have created for your own list, even if the order is different from the data you're getting from React Query when you request it from that API. So this gives you kind of your personalized order in your own app. Remember to keep striving for progress over perfection, and a little progress every day will go a very long way. Please give this video a like if it's helped you, and thank you for watching and subscribing. You're helping my channel grow. Have a great day, and let's write more code together very soon.